Hello and welcome to the PRS Compliance Track Demonstration. What I want to do is give you an overview of a couple of the functionality and features within the Compliance Track portal. Before we begin, I just want to give you a quick overview of what you're looking at on this screen. To the left is a list of all the various programs available on the Compliance Track portal. We're going to be going over mainly the Hipaa Track and Fraud, Waste, and Abuse, but then at the end I will just give a quick description of each of the other programs. On the right, what you're looking at are the quick snapshots of the trainings that are completed or yet to be completed for each of the programs. For instance, if we look at the third one over, the Hipaa Track has a 62%. What this means is that 62% of the Hipaa trainings have been completed. So 62% of the employees have gone in and done their Hipaa training. What this does is gives the administrator a quick snapshot of how compliant they are in terms of trainings completed. So again, just a quick snapshot just so people can get an idea of where they are. So let's begin. I want to first show you the policies and procedures of the Hipaa program. You know, as you may or may not know, the key with Hipaa is Hipaa training is very important. It needs to be done. All the employees need to be Hipaa trained. But a key component of being Hipaa compliant is having a Hipaa policies and procedures manual. So what I want to do first is show you that manual. This green cog here that you see to the right, when you click on that, this gives a few questions that need to be answered, such as, you putting in the name of your privacy officer, your security officer, and as well as some other information. What this will do is then populate the manual where needed with that information. The Hipaa Track manual, you can download it to your computer. We suggest viewing it online for the main reason is you'll always know it'll be up to date. Anytime we have updates and so on, we do give notice, we do give you alerts on your home screen. However, it'll be automatically updated within the respective policies and procedures. If we add a policy and procedure directly into the manual, you won't have to do anything. All right, so I clicked on the view button. This brought up the Hipaa Track table of contents. All of our manuals are written the same way. In other words, they're formatted, they're arranged the same way. So the first piece of each policy and procedures manual is our compliance and education section. So education in terms of, there's various resources that can be reviewed. There's, posters and so forth. And the compliance, each section, each manual contains a compliance guide, and I want to show you this in a few moments. The compliance guide is your step-by-step instructions on how to implement the policies and procedures. Especially for things like Hipaa, it's very important that you have these policies implemented. You need to have them, you need to have access to them, and they do need to be implemented. We've had customers tell us that auditors will show up to their locations. They'll want to see some policies and procedures, and at times have actually asked questions about specific policies and procedures. So you want to make sure the appropriate people, in this case your privacy and security officers, have in fact implemented the policies. Before we do that, let me just show you how this is arranged. So we have our actual policies that start, and with Hipaa they're arranged with the privacy policies first, then security. So the links that are justified to the left, those are the actual policies and procedures, and then any policy or procedure that has a form with it will have it listed underneath, and it'll be indented and it'll be labeled forms. So it's pretty obvious, which ones are forms. To access a particular policy, all needs to be done is clicking on that particular policy. So if we have a complaint and you need to follow your complaint policy, you simply go to the complaint link, click on it, and it'll take you right to that policy. So this is your policy, the store's policy on how to handle a Hipaa complaint. Any mentioned forms, any corresponding forms or policies that are related to this can be accessed through this particular policy, or again, you can access the form in the tables of contents. So that's more or less how this works. Also, from here you can modify any document seen modified. You can also access and print. So in the case of your notice of privacy practices, the form is located under just beneath the policy. The policy will tell you, when you need to give it out. It'll explain to you need to have it posted, and then you can access the notice of privacy practices by clicking on this link, and you can print it from here. It's a 2-page document. You can print it front and back if you like, and it is complete and ready to go. If there's things you want to add, you can add them, because again, it is a Word document, and you'll see it's populated with our contact information, our being our store's contact information. So that is how you navigate through the policies and procedures. I'm now going to show you the compliance guide. So I scrolled up to the top, and I'm going to now click on the link to open the compliance guide. And again, this compliance guide will give you the step-by-step instructions on how to implement the policies and procedures. When the compliance guide pulls up, you're first going to see instructions on how to use the compliance guide. So the first 1.5 pages to 2 pages, and again, this is true with all of our compliance guides, whether it's for Hipaa, fraud, waste, abuse, Osha, what have you. The first thing it contains are the instructions on how to implement the program. And it'll give you things like, common terminology, definitions. In this case, it goes over the fines, the types of fines, whether they're, criminal or what have you. And then it'll get into the actual policies and procedures themselves, what you need to do. So for Hipaa, what needs to be done is the privacy officer in this case would begin going through each of the links, which is their policy and procedure. It gives a brief synopsis of what each policy and procedure is. But what the officer would need to do is go through, open, and read each policy and procedure. So in the case of documentation, you click on a link, you read the policy, you go back to the compliance guide and continue on down. And we'll do waiver of rights next. Again, click on it, read through it. They don't, of course, have to memorize it, but they do want to become familiar with what's in here. So with these policies I just showed you, you don't need to do anything other than read them, know you have them at this point. Same thing with the complaint policy. I showed you that before on the table of contents. With the complaint policy, you need to know you have a complaint policy. You don't need to do anything right now other than know that you have it. So if you were to receive a complaint, you'll know what you need to do, or at least you'll know where to go to access the policy to find out what you need to do. However, there are some policies where you'll need to do something now, and we've labeled those. So I want to go to the inventory of PHI policy, and if you look below, you'll see action item task. What this means, what this is doing is it's flagging this to alert the privacy and security officers that something needs to be done now. So in this particular case, I want to just go ahead and open this policy. You need to log where any PHI is housed. So you have the physical forms, papers, files, those kind of things, where those are housed, whether it's on location or if you have an off-site storage. And then, of course, any of the electronic forms, and we give a bullet points down here. Even if on a copy machine, if it's, it's taking digital copies, that information is stored. You need to be aware of that. So if you were to ever replace that machine, that data is wiped out of that machine. So to access the form, you just simply click on the link. It brings up the form. This can be downloaded to your computer and typed in. You could print this document off and handwrite things, whatever is best for you. Then it can be filed in the appropriate place. So again, I just want to show you how the compliance guide works. We understand that HIPAA, it's very important. We're not going to deny that. No one's going to deny that. But it's not generating money. It's something you have to do, but it's a pain. We know it. Our customers know it. So we do our best to make this thorough, but yet as easy to use as possible. And as always, if there's ever any questions, our customers can always get a hold of us. Our contact information, let me go back to the home screen, is always down below, so they can contact us at this number. They can ask for support, and any other questions can be answered. We're available by phone 8 through 5, Monday through Friday. And of course, if a live person doesn't pick up, if you leave a message, someone will get back to you quickly. So anyway, we are available for help if someone were to have questions. So I just went back to the home screen. We just went through the HIPAA policies and procedures. I'm not going to go through each one because they're all set up the same way. All of our policy and procedure-based programs are set up the same way. What I do want to show you though now are the trainings, how they work. So when you click on the trainings tab, I went up to navigation, brought down the training. This pulls up our training portal, for lack of a better term. The way this works, for every program that a store has, so if a store just had our HIPAA and fraud, waste, abuse program, you would only have access to HIPAA and fraud, waste, abuse trainings. This is our mock site, so we have all the programs, so each employee has access to all the different trainings. You can see Osha, drug supply track, and so on. With that, each employee is then given their own name associated with each training, so you'll see an employee will be in here multiple times. So if we look at the first name, Jackie, she has 5 trainings that she's linked to. Now if you look over to the far left, you'll see there's a green button, looks like a green button next to Jackie's name. I want to show you, go down here. And some people, Becky here has a red button. So that means that green means that the trainings have been completed. Red means the trainings need to be done. They're due now. And if you go all the way over to the opposite side, to the far right, you'll see when the trainings have been completed, or in the cases where they're due now, it's flagged as due now. Again, just gives the administrator a quick snapshot of who needs to do their trainings. You can also do reports. You can view a report of all completed trainings, of all incomplete trainings. You can show trainings just for one particular program. And again, if you had just HIPAA or just HIPAA and fraud, waste, abuse, those would be the only 2 options available under that drop-down menu. And these 2 percentages are showing the number of trainings completed as a whole. So not just it's your HIPAA, fraud, waste, abuse. In our case, all these programs, we have 32% of the people trained, 32% of the trainings have been completed, 68% still need to be completed. Now to do a training, a couple different ways to do this. You can assign the person their own username and password, and they could log in, and when they log in, they would only see their respective trainings. Or the administrator can sit them down at the computer, bring up this entire screen, click start, and then have the person go through the training. Either way is effective. Either way will generate a certificate that can be printed and signed. It'll also log the training. So in these cases where these trainings have been completed, when you go to the history, and I'm again over the far left here, you click on the icon and it'll bring up the trainings, the log when they were completed. So let me one other thing about the trainings to mention. I'll go into one and show you how it works. This is HIPAA training with no access. Well, so what that means is this employee Jackie has a job function where she needs HIPAA training. However, her job function does not have access to PHI, so that is labeled HIPAA training no access. Whereas other employees will do the HIPAA training with access. So this would be for your techs, your pharmacists. They need HIPAA trained, but they also have access to the PHI. Whereas someone who does not have access might be a janitor or custodian. They need to be HIPAA trained. They need to know what to do if they run across protected health information, but their job function, they don't come across PHI. Let me go into one of the trainings. So I want to click start, and this will bring up the training, and you'll see these trainings are basically a PowerPoint type format. They're slides, and they're given a delay, and when you click on the arrow, it'll bring on the next slide, and then it'll delay for a few seconds. The goal here is obviously you need the employees to read the trainings. And I'm not going to go through the entire one, but this HIPAA training typically takes about 30 to 35 minutes typically for everyone to read through. And again, read through and understand, comprehend. They want to, it's training, so they want to, obviously grasp what's in there. So that's how the training works. When that goes to the end, it would generate a certificate. So I mentioned the Hipaa trainings. There's Hipaa training with access, Hipaa training with no access, linked to a particular job function, job title. We also have, for fraud, waste, abuse, a couple of different options. Well, not options, couple trainings need to go with it. Now, our trainings are based off the Medicare trainings. It's the same material. We have the training for Part C and D, Medicare Part C and D. We have a code of conduct training. We have that as part of fraud, waste, abuse. A lot of the PBMs have been asking for it, a training on code of conduct. We have a code of conduct policy in the fraud, waste, abuse program, and then this is the training that the employee would go through. And then finally, we have the training on the entire program. What this does is explains the policies and procedures, how to use the whistleblower policy and procedure, why it's there. You want your employees to be aware that it is there in case would be needed. It will explain the differences between what is considered fraud, what is considered waste, and what is considered abuse. So that's the basic overview of the trainings. There are other trainings you can see, but I don't want to, they're all, again, all written the same way. Don't want to bore you with details. And again, if you do have questions on any of those, though, feel free to call us 800-338-3688, and one of our representatives would be happy to answer any questions you may have. What I want to do now before we wrap up is just briefly explain the other programs that are available. Our drug supply track, I'm starting here at the top, that is the Pedigree policy and procedure. So basically it's explaining when you would need to provide the pedigree of a particular drug in pharmacy to pharmacy transactions. If a pharmacy is supplying a particular drug to another pharmacy because that pharmacy ran out, this will explain when that pedigree information needs to be supplied. The employee track, that's our employee handbook. We have our own corporate handbook, and we had some pharmacies requesting it. They needed it for whatever the reason was, so we tweaked it and made it available in our suite of services. The exclusion track, this is our OIG checklist. This is checked automatically every month. You have the ability, customers have the ability to check employees, entities, and physicians, and again, that is done automatically every month. A report is generated and the contact person would be alerted when that training's due. The fraud, waste, abuse, I'm sure we all know what that is. Hipaa track we went through. License track is our tracking tool. Any business license or personnel license can be added in, and when they're due, an alert will pop up on a screen like you see here, and an email will be sent to the contact person alerting them that the license is due. That alert is sent out 60 days prior to that license expiring. Also, I neglected to mention this with the trainings. When trainings are due, an alert is also sent out 60 days prior to that training being due. I want to make mention of that. Non-discrimination program, I believe it was in 2016, there were some regulations put forth. You have to be, obviously you can't discriminate because of race, creed, religious beliefs, or sexual orientation. So now you need to have actual policies for it. That's what those are, and includes a training program. Osha, this is the non-drug chemicals, but what this does is it basically follows the Osha regulations. Provides the material data sheets, and also provides training, making sure that the employees don't leave materials, boxes, or what have you in front of the exits. There have actually been some chain pharmacies that have been fined for that. So that is the Hipaa, or excuse me, the Osha program. Farm Track. This is a program we provide to our customers. It allows them the ability to log in their weekly script count. And then what we'll do is every so often for those that participate in that program, we'll show them what the average is for everybody, just so they can gauge kind of where they stand. PSC, that is our pseudoephedrine program. It contains the policies and procedures. It contains the training. It also provides a bound logbook. Now, most pharmacies use the internet-based program to log pseudoephedrine transactions. and that's fine. That works. It works great, actually. But this is used more or less as a backup. So for a situation where, you know, there was no power for a period of time, or there was no internet connection for a period of time, and a pseudo-ephedrine sale occurred, you could utilize this logbook. It does need to be bound. The reason we bind it, it can't be loose paper, because it has to be obvious or conspicuous if a page were to be removed. Well, obviously, if it's a stack of papers, that's not as conspicuous, but in a logged booklet, it is. So we do provide a log booklet. QA Track, that is our quality assurance program, and that program is actually state specific. We have a general, this is actually a federal law, and we have a general program that meets those standards, but then we do have some states that have their own specific standards, and as a store, you need to have to comply with the strictest law, which is always the state. So basically, we have the list of states. If your state's not on there, you use the general. If your state is listed, if you're in Connecticut, you click on the Connecticut link. It'll take you to the Connecticut policies and procedures to meet the Connecticut standards. Thereby, you'll meet the federal standards. Tech Track is our technician policy and procedure manual and job description. The Vera I-9 Track, that program explains, you know, the I-9s, when you use them, how you need to store them. We also provide a quick link. So if you click on this link, it'll list all the employees, and it'll tell you which I-9s can be destroyed and which I-9s cannot be destroyed. And then finally, our last two programs, we have our ImmuTrack, which is our immunization program, policies, best practices, trainings, and then finally Med B Track. This is, you know, for those stores who dispense Med B, whether it's the drugs or durable medical equipment, but those that are not accredited. So if they're not accredited, and you do Medicare B, you still have to, you know, keep the appropriate patient files. This program makes sure that you're complying with those and with the 30 standards. That concludes this presentation. I thank you for listening. Hope it was helpful. And if you ever do need assistance, please call our 800 number at the bottom there, 800-338-3688, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you.